Welcome to another episode of the Speakeasy podcast, powered by hireEZ. Today, we're thrilled to host Cas Turbak, a visionary leader in HR and recruitment technology. As the head of Randstad Sourceright's global technology strategy, I am so excited to dive into his background and have him share insights that can shape your recruiting strategy for the future. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Excited to be here.
We always start every single podcast with this one question. How did you get into the world of recruiting and what are you currently doing right now?
Yeah. So I think like many in the industry, I actually kind of stumbled into it. I have a background in computer science and finance. I ended up graduating from college back during kind of the 2000 like financial turmoil. If you guys recall back then, it was a little bit of a challenging time to find a job within finance. And so I ended up applying to Randstad, where I've worked kind of my entire career within the HR and recruitment space. And I viewed it as more of an interim position as I tried to figure out something that was a little bit more akin to the financial background that I had graduated with. But, one thing led to another, and, 12, 13 years later, I'm still here within Randstad, and it's been quite the journey. I worked on a number of different initiatives while I'm here at Randstad, but, these days we're really focused in on the impact of AI to our client processes. We're doing quite a bit of work around AI matching as well as AI engagement with candidates. And we're particularly excited because we've recently launched what we're calling Talent Spider, which is a AI tool that allows us to harness some of the talent that exists in our own proprietary database. And so this is something that we're bringing to our clients. We've spent quite a bit of work on recently, and it's been keeping me quite busy over here.
Recruiting, sourcing, the whole industry has changed rapidly in the last 18 to 2 years with that AI involvement. What are the key benefits that companies can expect to gain from adopting a RPO model compared to the traditional in-house and outsourcing options? And how does Randstad incorporate that AI to improve those efficiencies for your customers?
Yeah, so I think RPO is going to deliver different benefits depending where in the sort of maturity journey a client is. If you're a client that has only ever had recruitment services in-house, then there's quite a bit that an RPO could do for you. We help with the scalability around being able to deliver against your roles. We are, a model that easily scales against hiring increases that need to occur, but we're also really flexible to be able to deliver even when there's maybe less volume and you might have to lay off folks if you had just a housing team. The other, again, is then RPO can bring even to, kind of newer entering into spaces that we have access to a ton of technology out there that you might not be able to have access to or to purchase through an organization yourself. And we have those relationships with a number of different vendors in the space. We're able to pilot and test things that maybe would be difficult to do for an end client. And so it's that access to the knowledge, to the experience, and to scalability that really brings a lot of value in that RPO relationship. Even if you are a bit more mature though, we have, kind of second, third, even fourth generation clients that are utilizing RPO. Where we're really able to bring an advantage there is being able to leverage some of our total talent approach. So one of the benefits around that is that we are not just in RPO, but we also have a staffing business. We do quite a bit of contingent hiring. And I think that's the feature that we see for a lot of our RPO engagements is that we're able to manage not just their process, but then also be able to combine that effort with other types of hiring and really hone in on total talent for them. Going back to the tech piece, I mentioned technology being kind of an impact for an RPO. I think when it comes to the cutting edge innovation, particularly when we're talking about things like generative AI or even just AI algorithms for matching and engagement, that's where we have the expertise and the guidance to be able to help our RPO client through that journey. And I think it'd be a little bit overwhelming sometimes for those clients, particularly if they haven't used AI in the past. A little bit of a buzzword these days. So AI means different things to different folks. That can be challenging navigating. Well, but when we're talking about AI, it's really important that we have rigor around compliance, that we're able to have the proper audits and have adherence to the right regulation. It's also certainly something where you will need to have the candidate experience in mind when you're implementing an AI tool. Those are all things that an RPO can help the client work through and offer up best practices from our past clients and our past pilots that we've run.
AI is sometimes a buzzword and people don't really understand what AI is. Can you explain, like I'm a third grader, what that entails?
Yeah, so I would say AI as a whole, typically when we talk about that, it's traditionally an algorithm that uses iteration, or to use it in kind of a third grader's terms. It's something that cycles time and time again over a particular problem. So it learns because it's getting additional input over the course of many different interactions with a candidate, or many different interactions with a recruiter. Generative AI takes that model and twists it a bit in that it's actually generating new content. If you think about a drawing, for instance, that you might do within elementary school, you're looking at a number of different drawings that your classmates have drawn, and you think, oh, that's a really interesting picture. That's another really interesting picture. I want to kind of take that style from this person and maybe take this background from this other person. It's learning and combining those different things to create something that's new and a bit novel for its use case. And so that could be images. It can also be for written language. And I think that's what people typically think of with, things like ChatGPT. Even these days, it's actually starting to have video as part of AI generatively. So I think there's quite a bit of potential use cases there for other space. But that's ultimately what we're talking about when we're talking about AI. I will say that, when I go out to HR Tech, or when I engage with different vendors out there, sometimes they're quick to label things that aren't really what I would consider to be AI. If you're just talking about, say, automation, that's a really powerful tool. But if it's not necessarily learning from past experiences, then it wouldn't necessarily be AI in my mind, but it's still particularly valuable when we're talking about workflow automation.
What is the hesitations for a company and customers adopting this new way of thinking, this new way of recruiting, sourcing, and what are the pushbacks that you typically get from your customers not adopting this new way?
Yeah, so I would broadly categorize them as either legal concerns or experience concerns. So the legal ones I think are pretty straightforward, where there's a lot of anxiety around what does this mean for potential bias in the process? Are we able to explain and defend why a particular candidate was selected as part of the process? Is there going to be adverse impact that's created as a result of using AI? Are they going to get sued as a result of using this type of technology? That's certainly in the forefront of a lot of the clients that we work with in terms of their concerns. There's also regulations to be concerned about on the legal front. So there's different jurisdictions in the United States. New York City, for instance, that just passed legislation and regulation around the use of AI in the hiring process, where you need to have particular opt-outs. You need to be able to have notification to the candidate. You have to be able to process different sorts of audits related to AI. And that's kind of the forefront of this. There's additional legislation that's coming within Europe and other parts of the US that's going to make it a little bit more complex to use these tools. And so I think that's certainly an area where we get a lot of anxiety and hesitancy from our clients. On the experience front, it's really ultimately tied to what's the impact to the candidate and what's the impact to the recruiters. I think that from the candidate perspective, sometimes our clients are concerned, well, are they going to feel that this is a impersonal sort of experience? Are we taking a little bit of that white glove approach away where they're used to interacting with a person? There's also concerns about what is the recruiter. Are they going to adopt the type of technology, or will they perceive it as maybe something that is replacing part of their job? Those are common concerns that we hear from our clients as well. I think the good news is that regardless of what we're talking about, the legal side or the experience side, there's definitely benefit to AI across that spectrum. And we're also, through the course of our experience with AI, able to find, I think, really strong justification to be able to use the tools and benefits that come with it. It's just a matter of talking through those concerns, making sure that folks are understand kind of what goes into them, and I think alleviating those potential anxieties related to AI.
Could you elaborate on Randstad's philosophy towards AI and how it influences decision makers within the organizations that you partner up with and your customers? The decision making process of you are offering this, other vendors are not, And has that increased business partnership with your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have in-house a number of experts related to this area. So we have folks, everything from data privacy experts, compliance experts, legal experts, and this panel of individuals has created for Randstad what we refer to as our AI principle. So this is actually a published document that we provide to all of our clients. I think it's actually on our website as well. But there's, I think, 7 or 8 different principles that we adhere to in using any type of AI technology. I won't dive into each and every one of those. We could spend the next hour talking through them, but there's a couple that I'll highlight. I think first and foremost that we always want to have a people first approach to AI technology. So when we think about the use of this, we want to structure and solution AI in a way that positively benefits the candidate and positively benefits recruiters and hiring managers. It shouldn't just be about efficiency. It should be looking at that human element and making sure that there's a positive impact to it. Explainability is another big one for us. So it's really critical that any AI tool that we partner with highly transparent around how they're making decisions, that it's not a black box related to the outcomes of whatever AI tool that they're using. And then we can be able to go back to both our clients, but also any kind of regulatory agencies and explain here's why a particular individual was selected and if there wasn't. That makes it really fair and helps to avoid any kind of adverse impact in the process. Finally, another principle that is really important to us is that ultimately there needs to be human guidance over the use of AI. So what we don't want to have is an AI tool that just runs autonomously of itself without any kind of human input and ultimately makes decisions around the hiring process. Instead, we view AI as sort of a force multiplier or a tool in a tool belt for a recruiter. But ultimately, it's that recruiter or that hiring manager that's making their decision around who's hired and who's not. And they're ultimately also reviewing decision around who's positioned part of that experience. So it can help to speed up the process. It can help to make it more efficient, but ultimately there's still a person that's making that final judgment around the candidate. And we think that that's a really important part of it.
Has there been a certain area of the recruiting process that has really increased efficiency utilizing AI, whether it's time to fill, quality of hires, cost savings? And is there an area that's impacted more than the other?
Yeah. So I think the area that we've seen the most success in is actually one that's probably near and dear to your heart, which is around matching, right? So AI matching is one where we've been able to see a demonstrable impact to our hiring for our clients. It really helps to speed up the process utilizing tools like hireEZ as well as others on the marketplace where we have typically dozens, if not hundreds of candidates that are applying to different jobs. You also have quite a bit of sourcing that needs to occur against jobs where we have maybe less applicant flow. And so utilizing AI to be able to stack rank individuals, to be able to find additional synonymous terms, to be able to quickly identify folks who already exist in our database of past applicants. This is really powerful for us to quickly be able to start the engagement process of those candidates and to allow our recruiters to do what they do, which is actually interact with candidates, speak with them, build that rapport, and ultimately get them interested in the client's role, versus spending all that time needing to think through resumes or manually working through the applicants that came to the system. So that's certainly, I think, the number one area that we see impact through the use of AI. And it's also one, again, going back to what I said earlier in the discussion, it's one where we're trying to find interesting new twists on the AI model. So we're looking at how can we take that sort of AI matching technology and leverage it again. Our database of folks, across all of our different options. We have hundreds of millions of candidates that are present across different staffing organizations globally for Randstad, for our outplacement organization, to other parties that we partner with within the recruitment space. That's a really interesting untapped market for us. And it's also, again, one that helps facilitate a total talent methodology for recruitment where we can more easily use AI to match somebody from a contingent role to a perm role and vice versa. So definitely, I think that's our biggest area of impact with AI. I will say that over the last year, generative AI has been one that we spent a lot of time focusing on. I don't know if we've really quite realized the ROI to it yet, but I do think there's going to be a substantial impact to how recruiters build out talent marketing communication, how they're able to build up branded landing pages and other sorts of things. That's an area that we're really closely looking at, really use the generative AI that we think will have an impact in the near future.
How has AI helped with improving the diversity of candidate pools for your customers?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think like many people, when I first started working with AI tools, I was initially a little bit skeptical, which is, you hear these kind of horror stories around AI only matching against past hiring, and not every client has the best record with past hiring, and so you end up in areas where maybe only white males are recommended because that's what's been hired in the past. I think the beauty is that as we've looked at these AI tools and as we implemented them for clients, surprising thing is that AI in many cases is actually more compliant and helps to drive more diversity than humans would in other cases. So every person out there has biases, whether they're recognized or not. I think everybody has that experience. And even if it's not a conscious bias, as a person, you may not necessarily ask all the same questions to the same candidate because you're rep per time, or you may interpret something differently from one candidate to another just based on how you interact with them. AI is always consistent. So it's always going to be taking the candidate through the same process. It's always going to be posing the same questions. It's always going to be evaluating them using the same sort of criteria. And so in that sense, it helps to level the playing field and for candidates that, maybe were overlooked because of their name or their location or what have you. That's not information that these AI tools take into account. It's solely looking at that work experience, the educational experience, sort of the skill set that can help to rise to those diversity in the top. Is also through a lot of the AI tools that we partner with, a active bias mitigation layer, which is not something that you can have in a conversation, with a candidate over the phone. So most of the matching AI that we partner with, for instance, will have a test that's done before any result is provided back to a recruiter. That checks to make sure that there's not any sort of adverse impact occurring, and you check to make sure that it's only looking at that pertinent information. And so I think that's been the really exciting but interesting result that we've seen through AI. That consistency has really helped to spur on diversity within the hiring process.
Building a strong partnership only works with effective communication and helping each other out. Walk me through your partnership with hireEZ, how your team's utilizing it, and how it has been effective sourcing candidates.
Yeah, so we partnered with hireEZ for a number of years now, and we leverage it across what we call our shared service sourcing center. So we have a team of experts that are really hunters around talent. These are folks that are focused on those purple squirrel roles, the really difficult, challenging positions like the nuclear engineering, for instance. So the hireEZ for us is a tool that really helps to facilitate going a level beyond just LinkedIn data or just our applicant data. And it allows us to have a more complete view of the candidate that's aggregated across a number of different sources. From what I understand from the team, it's also really powerful to be able to use some of the functionality within hireEZ to both uncover additional fit criteria through the use of AI, but then to also be able to engage with talent more rapidly through some of the communication channels that are present within hireEZ. And so that helps us quite a bit to be able to, in this difficult recruitment market, more readily move candidates to the flow and uncover people that we may not have otherwise found to normal sourcing channels. To your point on partnership and communication, I think with any partner, it's really critical for us to be aligned in terms of that vision, particularly around the use of AI tools. And that's something that we found with the hireEZ team. You guys have been incredibly responsive for any kind of challenges that we've run into. You've also been very proactive when it comes to looking to the future. So it's not just what's here today, but looking into the vision for where can the product be taken a year from now, 2 years from now, collaborating on the business problems that we have, and just having those really transparent conversations around what can make it better. And that honestly, from everything from your guys' CEO all the way down to the folks that we work with on a day-to-day basis, that has really been embodied in the communication style that we've had. And so it's been a really strong partnership as a result.
You talked about the future and looking ahead. As we look into the future of recruiting, what trends do you foresee shaping the recruiting landscape? And how can recruiters stay ahead of the curve and adapt to those ever changing demands of the job market?
Yeah. So I would maybe answer this in two ways. So I think from a technology standpoint, what we've seen recently has been a consolidation in the market, and I expect that that's going to continue to occur. So even just within the last year or two, there's been a number of technology partners that we've worked with that have either been acquired or that have merged with one another. And I think that from a recruiting standpoint is going to yield some benefits. I think that if you're a recruiter working at a desk, you don't necessarily want to jump from tool to tool. Having that functionality within some bigger platforms is going to be really interesting for them. And I think enable some of those touch mechanics that might not have otherwise occurred. I think the other area where we're probably going to see a trend over the next few years is the impact of AI, not just for the recruitment process, but to the world of work as a whole, which in turn will impact recruiting. So by that, I mean, if you think about some of the roles that Ron frequently hires against right now, there's a lot of entry level accounting roles that we work for. There's a lot of customer service roles that we hire for. There's initial sales roles that we hire for where people are doing cold calls. I envision a world, within the next 5 years where through the use of generative AI and through the use of voice AI, a lot of that is going to be potentially automated, where you're not necessarily going to have to hire as many accountants to work through the books. You're not going to have to hire as many customer service folks who a lot of that work's going to be automated. And so I think what our customers are going to come to us for as recruitment experts is to say, in this changing landscape, what does that profile look like for the roles that we're hiring? And how can we maybe change and upskill some of our employees to focus in a world that is more driven by AI? I think that's really exciting. I think it's also going to be a bit disruptive. And I think that's where there's going to probably be a big trend over the next few years.
Creating a strong employer brand is crucial for attracting top talent. What strategies have you found most effective in building an authentic and appealing employer brand with utilizing AI and making sure that the customer doesn't feel like a robot's talking to them?
Yeah, so I think it ultimately comes back to engagement with the folks that are doing the job. So if you think of this from like a software development standpoint, you want to start with what's the problem you're trying to solve. You speak with the users, you speak with the business, the customers. You really try to gather like what does the day in the life look like for them, and then you build functionality around that. And that same mentality, I think, applies to employer brand. So if you're trying to communicate effectively to a candidate, you need to start with what are their colleagues going to be doing on a day-to-day basis if they're hired for that role. But what is their manager's role look like, and what motivates their manager? What is the culture of the particular client, and how is that going to influence the type of candidate that applies for it? I think having those direct conversations with the business, with the people who are actually doing those jobs, allows that more authentic candidate brand to shine through and really helps to capture some of the nuance of that culture in any kind of AI engagement that's occurring. I think it brings it to a level above and beyond just what's provided by a client's marketing.
Awesome. What advice would you offer an individual who is just starting their journey in the recruiting field in 2024?
Yeah, I would say there's maybe two things that you want to keep in mind. So I think number one, and this is maybe universal, maybe not just for the recruitment industry. I think it's really important that you find an effective mentor, somebody who's done the role before, somebody who's maybe seen the ups and downs of the industry, somebody who's maybe had some challenges that they had to work through. I think finding that type of individual, being able to learn from them and being a willing sort of participant to get feedback, good, better, and different around the work that you're doing, that's really critical. And at least in my own personal career journey, those sort of mentors have been absolutely critical to my progression within my career, and certainly recommend that to somebody that's starting out in the market. I would also recommend, and maybe I'm a little bit biased in this area, but I think the really effective recruiters and sourcers that I work with on a day-to-day basis are also really passionate and interested about technology. So they don't view their recruiting role solely as a recruiter. They almost view themselves as a bit of a technologist, where they're really keen to understand the nuance, the way to see around ETSs. They want to know what sort of AI sourcing tools are out there. They dive into some of the validated assessments that are out there on the market. And they're always looking for ways to take that type of technology and creatively use it within their process. I think that sort of focus on using technology as a tool to make yourself more efficient is going to go a long way in this recruitment issue today.
You talked about having mentors. You need different mentors throughout your journey. When you first get in the industry, you need a specific mentor in that stage of your career. You're at a point where you're the vice president of a large organization, leading a ton of individuals. Has there been a specific person that's really shaped your leadership style based on that mentorship?
It's an interesting one. I've had a little bit of an atypical journey in my career, and I feel very lucky in my experience here at Randstad. I mean, they've been very, good to me over the years. I get to give context to the listeners. I started at Randstad 12 years ago as a sourcer. So I actually started, in a sourcing desk. So you may know Glenn Cathy. He's one of the leaders out there in the industry for sourcing. He was the one that hired me into Randstad, and I joined his team. There was an experiment that was being run to see, could you take folks straight out of college with no sort of sourcing experience and meld them into an effective sourcer? So that was something that we worked on for a year when I first started here at Randstad. Although I started as a sourcer, I'd always been passionate about technology. As I said earlier, I started off as a computer science major at Georgia Tech. And so I proactively networked within Randstad to connect with some of the folks that led our technology organization or solution design organization. Some of those folks had some issues that I got involved with. One thing led to another, and then I moved over to become a solutions analyst working on technology support, technology implementations, and the like. Over the last 11 years or so, I've had, I think, many different roles within the technology space, everything from the solution analyst position I mentioned to business analyst, a manager around technology, strategy, everything from director, senior director, and above, kind of moved up the ranks over the last 4 years. Being able to do that, I think, was a combination of hard work, being very lucky in the right place in the right time, but then also having those effective mentors that journeys within my adventures within my journey here. There's two individuals I worked really closely with early in my career. I worked very closely with those two individuals at the team, and they were very passionate about HR technology. They were sort of visionaries within the space that sought to sort of shake things up. They were always kind of bringing in a new tool to pilot. They were really heavily involved with our sales and solution design process. And that was really critical for my career growth because it allowed me to see what's the impact of the tech that we're bringing, not just that we're implementing these tools, but actually part of a process, part of the overall solution that we're offering to our clients. And that was really instrumental. They taught me a number of things. I think first and foremost, they taught me how to engage with senior leaders. They taught me how to sell. And that's a really critical skill, even if you are a technologist, to be able to articulate what the value is the technology brings to your client, what the value is that brings to our customers internally, the users and recruiters. They also taught me how to navigate through challenges within the tech implementation. Nothing's going to be perfect with the technology. There's going to be issues. We're going to run into challenges with adoption. And it's really important that you kind of address those head on. So very instrumental to my career and kind of early on being able to work with those mentors. I will say that something you mentioned a moment ago is, I think, very insightful, which is that, maybe the type of mentor that you work with has a different type of impact depending on where you are in your career. And so these days, I work very closely with Thomas Jayot, who's our chief personal officer. I work very closely with Mike Smith, our CEO. It's a different sort of mentorship there, where they're looking not just here today, what needs to be accomplished, but what is going to be occurring 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and beyond. And I think that forward-looking view has a different set of challenges, but a different set of opportunities associated with it. And so, again, I've just been very blessed over the course of my career to work with some really strong individuals and be able to help contribute to their effort.
The landscape of recruiting has undergone some significant changes over the last couple of years. There's a ton of people on the job market, specifically in the recruiting field. If you were looking to hire a recruiter right now or a sourcer, what specific advice would you give to those individuals as they approach the job search, approach the interview?
I think networking is really important. So I think being proactive to, reach out to the recruiters and hiring managers directly for your organization that you want to work with, whether that's through your personal network or through LinkedIn. I think it's always good to, in addition to your formal application, to show interest in the role by engaging with those folks and really trying to understand what problems they're trying to solve. I think having that combination of technical experience along with sourcing acumen is a really important one-two punch. And so if you have a bit of additional time as part of your job search to educate yourself on what the trends are on the market, to look at maybe some webinars, streaming conferences like HR Tech, to look at industry publications, see what being talked about in terms of new technology, maybe even get a demo and try some of those technologies. A lot of vendors will offer free trials. That can be a really good way to build your experience and to come to the interview with the skills around recruitment. I would also say, again, going back to our conversation about mentorship a moment ago, I think the really cool thing about being in this kind of internet-driven age is that you can also have kind of indirect mentors through industry leaders. So, if you look at some of the folks out there, like Kathy, and Stroud, Eric Cliff of this world, there's a ton of information out there in their personal blog, in webinars they've done, in recorded conference talks that they've done. That's really useful information that you can view in your own time and be able to articulate some of those sourcing skills to an upcoming employer. I think all really powerful ways that you can come a little bit more prepared to the interview. And I think for me, at least, really showing as part of that interview that you're willing to go above and beyond that particular job is another important part. So you're thinking about what your career progression is going to look like down the road that you're applying for, and how you can bring value to the organization long term is going to be an important thing as well as part of that interview.
Awesome. Let's switch over to the quick fire questions as we wrap up. What is the favorite rec tech tool that your teams are utilizing right now?
It's kind of like trying to pick my favorite child. I think it's a lot of really good ones out there, but I would say I'm particularly partial to the sourcing technologies that we work with. So we partner very closely with HardScore, for instance, from a kind of internal database matching standpoint. And then obviously we partner with you guys, hireEZ, from the external matching standpoint and sourcing standpoint. I think in this candidate market, that's a really important area of technology to be able to find candidates. And so that's probably my favorite area of tech at the moment.
What's the best interview question that's proven successful in assessing candidates?
So it's a little bit of an interesting one, but I really like to dive into, what's a project or initiative that you worked on that went poorly? I think a lot of times, when you talk about interviews, people are trying to obviously sell themselves. They're trying to talk about their success. In my personal career, as well as in my personal life, I think that the measure of a person is often how they deal with adversity. And that's just the reality of life. Things are not going to always go according to plan. There's going to be unhappy clients. There's going to be implementations that go wrong. There's going to be jobs that don't get filled on time. I think diving in on what do they do to resolve that problem? How do they effectively communicate during that challenging period? What did they learn from it? How did they grow as a person? That's really valuable information to really assess how they're going to be able to continue in their journey when times get tough.
I feel like the best leaders always consume a ton of information from a lot of different avenues, whether it's books, podcasts, YouTube, webinars, conferences. Is there a specific book or podcast that you would recommend related to this industry to stay up on the latest trends?
Yeah. So I quite like the publications related to the HR tech space. So I typically follow for like the HR tech conference, the leaders that speak their personal blogs, as well as, personal kind of YouTube and social media. I find a lot of really valuable information coming out of that. I'd also say that kind of word of mouth is probably my number one source to finding out new tools and technologies in space, rather than even anything formal that's published. I go to the recruiters we work with, the recruiting managers that we work with, clients, and say to them, hey, you guys are contacted on a regular basis by people doing cold calling for technology. What are you hearing about? What are your colleagues using? What's been interesting for you guys? I think that's been probably by far the number one source of referral for new HR tech that I come across. it's just in speaking with the people that do the job and, what kind of tips and tricks have they found around different tools helpful for them.
Last question. Looking back on your career and all the success you've had, what is the proudest accomplishment that you had in your career so far?
So, a couple of years ago, Randstad was a very different business. So we were highly regional. We had kind of different operating centers for North America, for Europe, and for Asia. And we had very disparate technology stacks as a result. And that made it challenging to scale. It made it challenging to service clients that we need to service globally. So there was a huge change management effort that went through to standardize across a consistent CRM, digital interviewing tools, a consistent reporting platform. That's something that I'm particularly proud of just because I think it had a big impact for the business, but it was also one that really broadened my horizons around my colleagues globally. It was a great opportunity to partner with some of our team in Singapore, with operating centers in Hungary, as well as in UK and Ireland. That was a really exciting initiative because you got to see what are those nuances for recruitment in region to region, what are some of the local laws that we need to adhere to, what culture around engaging with candidates. It's just a really, I think, powerful experience to see. There's a lot of difference in recruitment, but there's a lot of the same when it comes to our global recruitment. And I think that just was something I'm particularly proud of because of those connections I've built. And I still work very closely with some of those individuals here today, even a number of years later.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience as we wrap up?
I again would want to reiterate that I think that technology is going to have a big impact on not just the recruitment process, but the world as a whole. I would just highly recommend for any recruiter or sourcer, regardless of where you are within your career, go out and test ChatGPT, test some of these other, image-based, generative AI tools out there. It's not all of them are free. They're all things that can be accessed. And I think that that's going to be something that would be, at the very least, something interesting to talk about on, your next family dinner, the next date that you go on. But, or maybe at least for me, I don't know. I talk about HR tech on my date. I think that's something that would be really interesting to dive into, and it's going to be powerful for your career as well.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, I want to just say thank you so much, Cas, and the whole Randstad team for the strong partnership and enlightening us and the audience on the whole HR tech world. We dove into AI. We talked about relationships, partnerships, and you are making an impact to the community, and we really appreciate it. So if you loved listening to this, feel free to subscribe, like, share on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your next podcast. And feel free to get involved at hireEZ with our community page as well as our Outbound Recruiting Academy.
Thank you for having me. I love the conversation and certainly would love to continue it with any of your listeners that are interested. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Would be more than happy to dive into some HR tech with you guys.